Hey guys, welcome back. In this video I want to go over the ICT Silver Bullet Hour for 10 to 11 a.m. on May 17th. Alright, so let's throw this lipstick on here. Okay, so before I go over everything here, I actually want to move this over here. I want to show you. I have it highlighted here, light gray, for the 8:30 news embargo when it gets lifted, all the way over to 11 a.m. Okay, and then this Silver Bullet Hour is highlighted in darker gray. Okay, so I'm actually gonna take this part off. Okay, so this is now here. I want to go over my rules. So when I go through the Silver Bullet Hour, I use the 2022 mentorship model. That's my trade setup. That's in my trading plan. I need to see a higher time frame liquidity taken. I need to see a swing high or swing low broken for a market structure shift. I need to see displacement that formed a fair value gap, and an entry of 1 to 2 risk to reward ratio. Okay, a minimum of 1 to 2, preferably more, but I have to have at least 5 handles. Okay. I should put risk 1 to 2, minimum 5 handles on here, so I'll probably add that in the next video. But let's go through the first. This is the 9:30 open. Let's go over this trade setup first, and then I'll get into the ICT Silver Bullet Hour, because I think it's important to know. Okay, so at 8:30, the news embargo was lifted. We created this short-term low right here. Price traded up through these new week opening gaps, into past this new week opening gap and up to this, and took out a higher time frame high. It cleared it right before the 9:30 open. So then price traded down, came up. There's no fair value gap, there's no displacement, and then here you do have displacement, but again there's no imbalances here. Okay, this candle wicked all the way up here. There's a fair value gap and an inversion fair value gap, but it stopped right there. It didn't trade into it. Okay, that's where this breaker comes in. So you have a swing low that took out liquidity, took out this high. So highest, and then when it trades down and it comes back into it, this is a trade setup right here. Okay, so right here would have been your trade, right there on the breaker. Your high would have been above this right here. So right here I did 3. You actually need 3. Go right here with 2.75 handles. You just want to be above this high. Technically you want to be above the breaker, but there's a volume imbalance here, so I wanted to cover that as well. Let me put that on there, so just for clarity reasons, let's make sure everyone sees it. Volume imbalance. Okay. There's your volume imbalance. Let's put that like that so you can still see the breaker. So I want to have my high, my stop above this, came back in. So on a breaker, you have to have, it's for a bearish breaker, it's the swing low, and it has to take out the short-term high. Okay, so it needs to clear that, and then when it trades through it, comes back through this swing low and trades back up, that's when they want to mitigate their losses, and that's where they will. You can take your trade and it'll aggressively move down, which it did perfectly here. Now you wanted to trade for 5 handles, you would have got that right here. Easily done, but you're shooting for this short-term low, so you're going for a minimum of 7. And then there's another one that's down here, which ICT wants to go through 10. So again, this blue line, dotted line right here, is the midnight New York time opening price. So that's that line. The purple dotted lines, probably hard to see on YouTube, but these dotted lines here are new week opening gap lines. And sometime I'll show you how I have these on my chart so you can see what I'm talking about there. So we trade in here. There's your trade. That's your 9:30 opening trade right here. Very good trade. If you would have taken that, you probably would have been done for the day. Probably wouldn't have. If I have a good winner like that, I would not trade. I'd just take the rest of the day off. But here's what happened in the Silver Bullet Hour. Again, we follow our mentorship model. Okay. This price gave you that, just a different, instead of a fair value gap, it gave us a breaker. Okay, so it's another PD array displacement that formed a PD array is what it should say, but we'll use fair value gap for this. Okay, so 10 o'clock started, open price. It came down and it took out 1, 2, 3 short-term lows right here. So it obviously took out higher time frame liquidity. That's what all these are. Okay, so now I'm looking for an aggressive move up. It needs to take out a short-term swing high or low. So here's your swing high. It takes that out. Is there any fair value gap displacement here? No. You're like, ugh, that would have been perfect. It is ideal. Well, again, displacement that formed a fair value gap should say slash PD array. Okay, so when here's your breaker block. Again, swing high, the swing high, and it takes out the swing low here. So and then when it comes up, trades up, and trades back down into this breaker block, that makes it a breaker. So when this down candle right here, that makes it a breaker, you could have taken the trade. You get another tap into it right here. Comes back up and then comes there. Look at where those candle bodies stop, right on the top of that breaker. Beautiful. And then price delivery comes all the way down, wicks all the way down to the bottom, comes back in, trades through. There is your perfect breaker entry pattern. So you could have taken, oh, wrong one, this one. That would have been your trade right there. And your stop would have been below, should be below the breaker. I go below the candle that formed that was traded through with a breaker, past the swing low right here. Treat it kind of like a fair value gap in my trading, so I have a good enough buffer here. So 3 there, 6, it would be 2 to 1 or 1 to 2 right there. Could you go for 10? Yeah, if you were shooting for 10, you're shooting for above this high, and up over this high would have been, 11 or 12 handles. Okay. All right, so let's just minimize this for a second. Okay, actually, you know what? I'm just gonna take it off the chart. So then you're like, okay, for fair value gap, you didn't have one here, okay, but you still took out a low. You're still having bullish sentiment, right? So then here's a smaller, a little micro mini version of the 2022 model. This candle, this price bar right here, this wick came down, took out these 3 relatively equal lows right here, took them out, right? Aggressively came up, took out a swing high right here, right? Where's your displacement? Right here. Okay? There's also a volume imbalance here that they trade right down into and tap. Let me put this on here just so everyone sees what I'm talking about. Right there. You trade back into it. So where's your trade setup? Well, this fair value gap, you could have taken that trade. Oh, I always do that one. Right there. And then you would have gone below the candle the 3 candle pattern that formed the fair value gap. So your low would have been below this also breaker block. So you also had this as another buffer to protect your thing, along with a volume imbalance. So if you've taken this trade right here, what does ICT teach? If you have 3 PD arrays that are broke, it's going against you. So get out of the trade as soon as you can. Right? So if you took this trade, you're taking it on top of the fair value gap. So if it traded down against you, it'd have to clear that fair value gap, clear the volume imbalance, clear the breaker block to take you out. That's 3. You're done. If it did that, you're on the wrong side of the market. Okay, so you took this trade right here at the top of the fair value gap. You had no drawdown. It went straight up. There's 5 handles. And yes, you would have taken the same just like the other one. You could have targeted 10 because you would have gone above these highs. But you didn't need to, but that's what your pattern would have been. So you could have had 2 different silver bullet trades in the 10 o'clock hour following our rules. So there is my what I saw as the 10 to 11 a.m. silver bullet session for today.